What was the Sunset Strip like after grunge hit? Um, Back for one more wanted to know about that. I figured I'd do it in this form, talking form. Well, this is what this picture up here. I was in a band called the X Idols at that time, and I am on the right, on your right. So on the left is Lance Porter. Shawnee DeMott is second. Lance is drums. Shawnee DeMott bass. Gary Finneran, also known as Gary X, is third, and I'm fourth, guitar, and I'm playing guitar and backup vocals. And well, anyways, we didn't really feel the effects of it because we already started this band, and it was because Gary, the blonde one, it was considered like a punk. I saw him in a punk band, and they asked me if I knew any. Shawnee was asking me if I knew any good singers, and I said, yeah, there was this one band called the Tragedy Club that I saw, and we were playing at the Whiskey with them, and we were in Imaginable Peace, and they were the very first band that went on, and we were headlining that night. And I'm not even sure if it was a No Bozo Jam or not. I think it was. And I walked up to Gary and said he was really great. He's like, what did you like about it? I was like, well, everything. And he liked that. I thought it was funny that he asked me what did I like about it. Now Gary here, he passed away in 2009. Well, anyways, so the Strip, Nirvana came out in mid-91, I remember. And I knew that I was with my brother, and we were watching MTV, and I said to my brother, this is on at 3 o'clock. We thought it was amazing. It Smells Like Teen Spirit. We were like, oh, that's badass. And I noticed it was at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, which they don't play rock bands on MTV at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So I knew that they were in regular rotation just from that one play, and that they were big, because they don't play rock bands at that time. And I knew they were big, and I just didn't know it. So I watched MTV a little bit more and realized, yeah, they're huge. And everyone in Hollywood was kind of saying, before that, because you got to remember, it wasn't like alternative rock was like this new thing in Hollywood. I mean, there's Jane's Addiction was really big. We are all influenced by Jane's Addiction. This band, Imaginable Peace, was as well. Lance on drums is very influenced by Jane's Addiction. He was like more of an alternative rocker to begin with. I mean, although he liked the same stuff I liked when we were kids, like the 80s rock, but he also liked the Police because of the drummers, the drummers. And he was an MI drummer that just killed it. And Musicians Institute in Hollywood drummer. Anyways, so we actually started doing this kind of music, which is, to me, it was basically any kind of music. It didn't have a particular style because I'm coming from like a LA Guns Bang Tango, Van Halen background. And so is everybody, but Gary also liked like punk bands like the Zeros, like the LA bands, the Zeros, which I played with a lot, and I really liked the Zeros, but he was like really into the Zeros as far as punk goes, and then he later got into like punk, but at the time when we met him, he was into like that kind of punk, like the Zeros basically, and we just were considered like a kind of a grunge band, and we got a record deal right away. We made a tape in 1992, and alternative rock was getting big, and I even did an interview in Details magazine, which is this fashion magazine that was really big in the 90s. It was like the #1 fashion magazine at that exact moment, and we were in there with a 5-page article. I should dig that out and show it sometime. And it went throughout all of Hollywood. It saw that, and like, how the heck did they get on in the Details magazine, and no one's even doing nothing in Hollywood? And then at the end of the interview, it actually says they were about to get a record deal because the record company calls us in the middle of while the interviewer is there, and he's saying that I can overhear Shawnee hush tones talking about the record deal and blah blah blah, and when we should sign and blah blah blah, And then anyways. And all we did to get signed is not, we didn't get signed in LA. We got signed out of a record company in New York called Relativity Records. and we mailed our cassette. We made 125 cassettes, like professional cassettes, and mailed out like 100 of them. I know that we have an interview in here that says otherwise, but I'm telling you the truth. You know how we're trying to make ourselves look good here, but I don't even know why. Anyways, but the truth is that we kept a 25 for ourselves, you know, like to keep. You know, I have one, a perfect condition of one copy of those, my one. And anyways, we mailed it out to every record company, and one called back. Relativity, just one, and they signed us because they flew out from New York, and we did a showcase at SIR, and we played our set, and they just loved it, and it was a really good cassette actually. The demo that we made is pretty much the best recording and best songs. I actually wrote those songs. They got us the record deal all by myself, and except for the chorus of the second song, "World Keeps Turning." Shawnee came up with the lyrics for that because he just goes, "I need a chorus." He goes, "World keeps turning." I was like, "Yeah, that's perfect." So there he goes, and right here is as you can see, there's a little CD there. That was our first EP that came out called Pill Popper in '94, but we mailed out our tapes in '92. We actually signed the deal in '93, and we didn't have to worry about Hollywood at all. And by that point, in '93, Hollywood was completely dead. There were glam bands and stuff like that, as far as glam bands go, like Alley Cat Scratch and stuff. But overall, most bands did cut their hair off, like what you see here. You know, even Lance has a bob here. It's only to the shoulder, but it was all the way down his back too. And then he cut it and dyed it blonde, like Billy Idol, basically, like right after this photo. And so it didn't happen right away. As a matter of fact, what it is like when you're walking down the Sunset Strip and everyone's out there, because it's getting deader and deader, you know. And I was still on the strip when it was starting to die, and people would say like, "Oh, it's gonna die because of Nirvana. It's gonna die because of Nirvana." But it actually took a while before people actually stopped going. And I actually stopped going because we were playing, because Shawnee, the second guy, he wanted to play the underground clubs, you know, like the punk clubs, and you know, the Anti Club, or what was it, Hell's Kitchen, and then so they had that kind of scene where it's completely alternative rock, and so you would think, well, we're alternative rock, so you could still sign this kind of music. You're thinking from a record company, if you're thinking from a record company standpoint. And but they really didn't sign. But they weren't looking in Los Angeles to sign a band. You know, not the L.A. labels. But funnily enough, New York wasn't really thinking like that. So he just listened to the cassette. No photo, by the way, because I didn't want to do a photo. This photo was done. This is the back of that EP. Actually, this photo is on the back of that EP, and I believe that's, besides the Details magazine photo shoot, this is the second photo shoot we ever did, and we got signed with no photo. And I was adamant, no photo, because we were doing a hair metal thing, and I was like, can we just make it on songs? How about we make it on songs? And so we got Sean Freehill, the guy we always get to record the Imagine One Piece stuff, and he recorded this, and he actually recorded the album and the demos. Not all the demos, but a lot of the demos. And especially the one that got assigned, he recorded. Sean Freehill, he played guitar in The Malls. And not too long ago, with my drummer in my tribute band, they were doing Bullet Boys, actually. You can see that on YouTube, Sean Freehill, in Bullet Boys, in like 2008 or something. But he was the engineer on this. He was the engineer for Concrete Blonde and stuff like that. Like, oh, it's alternative, because he was like, you know, Hollywood is hipper than people think. People think that like everyone's glam metal. And then we're like completely oblivious, but no, I mean everybody there is like always talking about, like, no one, even when it was dying, people didn't want to admit they stopped wanting to admit that they were influenced by Motley Crue, which is complete bullshit. Because everyone was influenced by Quiet Riot. You don't want to admit it, and Motley Crue. But suddenly our metal bands were Alice in Chains and Jane's Addiction and this wasn't considered grunge yet, Alice in Chains. It was just considered a cool metal band, you know, like a hard rock band, really, and but more serious. And they didn't do any screaming, so you knew they were different, but you wouldn't think they were. I put them in the category of Bang Tango and Danzig myself. Is how I actually naturally categorize them. But anyways, but we were listening to Alice in Chains, Jane's Addiction, and stuff like Chili Peppers and I'm not talking about us. I'm talking about the entire Sunset Strip. We're influenced by it. Started making sure they were influenced by the Chili Peppers. Made sure that showed up. So they had like more funky stuff, more punky stuff. Where they're not the bands weren't influenced by punk so much, but they're influenced by bands that were metal bands that were influenced by punk. You know, like Suicidal Tendencies, the metal version. You know, that sort of kind of metal punk. Really, like the Electric Love Hogs were like that. That's if you remember the Electric Love Hogs. That's one of my big influences, actually. That's my favorite band when I was a kid, pretty much. But, well, anyways, as far as the Sunset Strip goes, yeah, so everyone had short haircuts like what you see here. And, and then, for instance, the drummer, I remember the drummer of the Guttercats was in Dig. Now, they sing that song, they got on MTV for a second. Anyone listening to this could be my age and saw that. The one that goes, why don't you believe in your own God? Yeah, yeah. If you remember that, why don't you believe? Then that was the drummer from the Guttercats, glam. Actually from Married with Children, the glam band, the glam like a blues hair metal strip band that Kelly Bundy's doing a music video for. Well, that's the drummer in Dig, the alternative band, you know. And I'm not making fun of people. I'm just saying that this is the actually. I could tell you like I used to play gigs with the Shrinky Dinks and Dirty Tricks, and they're just a rock and roll. They weren't like hair metal, but the guitar player is definitely trying to be Slash, and it reminded me of Slash and stuff like that. I'm not saying he's a wannabe. I'm just saying that you know the Slash is his influence for sure. You know, just like Eddie Van Halen's my influence, so and Slash. But anyways, those guys in Shrinky Dinks, that ended up being a band called Sugar Ray. So, alternative rock band all of a sudden, you know, with this kind of a haircut. Lit was Razzle, and they were like more like a boy band hair metal, like Trickster, because they were very young. They're about my age, but they all were about my age, and I was like 19s, and they were all like, I think 18 even, maybe even a year younger, but something like that. And anyways, they became Lit, and as a matter of fact, when Gary died, we did a show to raise money for his funeral, and at the 3 Clubs in Hollywood, and that's on YouTube. And I'm actually singing for his band, because Gary was in a band called Tuscarora after Ex-Idols, and I'm singing in that video as a singer in Tuscarora. So if you see the Tuscarora, that guy looks like Keith singing. That's me. And then there's also the Ex-Idols, but they kind of were mad at me for quitting the band, so I wasn't included in that, even though we are. It's really kind of Duke, you know. The guitar player, I kind of was a jerk to him, and it was really my fault, so. I was drinking, and I was a jerk. And I deserve it. But anyways, but that was like 20 years ago. So, as far as Razzle goes, or Lit, they played the 3 Clubs when he died, and they were saying that, well, they didn't tell me because I didn't actually talk to them when they were there, but everyone was saying that they were saying out loud to everybody that their song called, I don't know what it's called, but it goes, you make me completely miserable. That the beginning of the song starts off with a staccato guitar that goes, and then they start singing with just guitar, like punk style, and that's actually this EP is called Pill Popper, and that's the title track off of it, Pill Popper. It's a song from the Ex-Idols called Pill Popper, written by Gary, but that's actually my guitar, me playing guitar. But it's his guitar part that I'm just doing what he wrote, and it's to anyone who's ever heard it. If you look up anything, please look up Pill Popper from the Ex-Idols, because that is actually on even K-Rock. It lost a battle of the bands to a band called Face to Face, and which is not fair, because Face to Face I believe had like an album out already, so this is like their second record, and it went up against Pill Popper, and they barely I didn't hear it on the radio. I've never heard it on the radio, but people told me that it barely lost, and but it's really a masterpiece. It's like a metal punk rock Bowie, and I'm using a Rockman So it's not going to sound punk rock if you use a Rockman. The Tom Schultz Boston, not the Walkman one, but the rack mount one. Not that it sounds any different, but it's the rack mount. And that's what I used on that album. And I'm actually on the full-length album, although, like I said, I quit the band and got mad, so they took my name off the album. But I'm on half the tracks. And you could tell because he used a Marshall, Duke did, and I'm playing through a Rockman. So if you hear a Rockman, it's definitely not Duke. And Duke's the guy who replaced me in the X-Idols, who was a friend of ours. Actually, I still like the guy very much. It's my fault, like I said. So anyways, yeah, so that's basically the way I see the way I saw it. In the article in details, I actually talk about the Sunset Strip, and they highlight it next to a photo with the highlight text comments, and it says the Sunset Strip, grunge has successfully. I said something like grunge has killed the the Hollywood scene. The energy has moved elsewhere, which I don't remember saying. The energy has moved elsewhere. I'm like, did I really say that? I don't even talk like that. I think you might have added some words to my sentence, because I don't talk like that. The energy has moved elsewhere. Anyways, so let me play a little bit of this. This is actually the X-Idols live. We'll play a little bit of this. Here's some sound. This first track I know is a song of mine. It's on the EP called And I Was You. It's a song I wrote. It's my attempt at writing a punk metal song, because that's what's supposed to be punk metal. Alright, look how little I am. This has CBGB's in New York. This is our record release party, actually. So everybody in there works for the record company. And they're all sitting down watching us for the very first time. Because only the head saw us. All right. Now, oops. Let me pull this down. So the way we got the Details magazine thing was, and by the way, this is kind of how everything really works, is because like I said, our demo tape was really good, and that's how we got signed when no one was getting signed in LA. Send it to a record company that doesn't belong, that is not in LA. That always helps. The third thing was that we were really good. I mean, this is like pretty much the best band. Like a lot of people thought we were the best band in LA. That's how we got the Details of the magazine. They went to 3 clubs, and they asked the 3 clubs who the best band at the club was, and all 3 clubs said the X-Idols. And I was like, no. When the Details magazine writer told me that, because he doesn't work for the club. He's actually from like Sacramento or something, or San Francisco or something. I'm not sure. I think San Francisco actually. And anyways, So he had to, come down and rent a hotel and shit. And he would buy us pizza because we didn't have no food. As you can tell by how skinny we are. I'm like 125 pounds. Not that 125 pounds there. I'm only 140 now, though. But, anyways, what happened was they said that it was the Coconut Teaser. They asked, who's the best band to play there? They said X-Idols. And then we also were regular at Thai Eyes Cafe, which is a Chinese restaurant by day and owned by a guy named Keith, same name as me, at night. Or he leased it at night anyways, or whatever the hell they do. I don't even know. I was too little to even know how that worked. And I'm about 20... Well, this is 1994, so I'm 23 here. And, no, actually I'm 22, and I'm going to be 23 because this is March. Or no, I'm sorry, January. This is January. And because the EP came out in January. And anyways, there was a third club. I think it was the Hell's Kitchen, and they also said that too, that the best band was the X-Idols. And we got so they interviewed us, and we got this big old spread and it was about the demise of Sunset Strip was the name of the article, or about the article, and it was called Rock and Roll High School, and actually I just got a book called Rock and Roll High School, Growing Up in the Decade of Decadence, which is coincidentally the same name as the article, the Rock and Roll High School thing, And anyways, as it's funny, it's a really good article, and they asked us about the demise of the Sunset Strip, and the bands that were left, like it was Yesterday's Tear, which became Drown, and we were playing a gig with Yesterday's Tear and Kraftwerk, and it was us, like those are like the industrial bands that were trying to be like Nine Inch Nails, which is again predating Nirvana. And the Sunset Strip scene was already Yesterday's Tears has been around for years. Kraftwerk as well, Kraftwerk, and forever. And we had Pygmy Love Circus, and they would play like the Al's Bar in downtown LA, where there's like you can only hold like 35 people, and we played there too, in the X-Idols, and we're just trying to be in that scene, but we really didn't succeed because we were in that scene, except for the news article. It was really because we just mailed out a tape. And we just made sure that we really tried our hardest to write the best songs we could and recorded it really, really, really well. It's extremely good sounding, and that's all we did. So to me, the Sunset Strip scene died, but that kind of music is so iconic that, when you go to a football game, they're going to play Kickstart My Heart, and it's going to sound really good to everybody. So even my old bands, I go, man, this riff, you put this in front of an audience right now in a football stadium, they'll like it. That sort of thing. So, I know that people my age think that that's still out of style, but if you actually look around, that nothing, on the internet, nothing's really out of style, because you can't just take things like before. They just took it off the radio. The radio station went out of business. KNAC, the rock station, became a Spanish station overnight. It was crazy. So when it did in '92, when it finally did die, it was like overnight. But it did take about a year for it to die. But then one day it was like, yeah, you can't do that Van Halen guitar solo with a Van Halen David Lee Roth haircut thing anymore. It's been done 10,000 times too many right now. You're gonna have to. The world needs a break. Yeah, that's really all it is. The world needs a break. But nothing ever goes out of style. I just played a party last week, and we played Sweet Child O' Mine. Place goes nuts. Play Highway to Hell. Place goes freaking nuts. Pour Some Sugar on Me. Place goes nuts. I love rock and roll. Of course, the place goes nuts. So that stuff is very, very popular. And kids love it. When I do a guitar lesson, they want to learn freaking Kickstart My Heart, or, well, I never get that request. It's actually Crazy Train and Sweet Child O' Mine, like every time. Those two are always. So, well, there's my stories. I'll do more. And that goes at the back for one more.